But it wasn't at the door. It was the harsh buzz of her phone vibrating violently against the nightstand. A jarring sound in the silence she had grown to love. Meline stirred from sleep, blinking against the glow of the screen. Jenna, 2:03 a.m. purse, pickup. Then a second one right after. Jenna, 2:04 a.m. We got kicked out. They changed the locks. Purse, call me. Meline stared at the screen, unmoving. The room around her was dark and still, save for the soft purr of the box fan and the quiet creak of wood settling with a shift in temperature. For a full minute she didn't move. Then slowly she sat up, pulled her knees to her chest, and let the weight of the message sink in. Her first reaction wasn't sympathy. It was disbelief at how fast the universe had turned the wheel. They got evicted. She wasn't surprised. The rent had been behind for months, the bills stacking up like overdue apologies. But hearing it from Jenna through fractured, desperate text messages was surreal. Another buzz. Jenna, 2:06 a.m. We don't know where to go. Ronald is freaking out. Plus, just answer. Meline stared at the message, like it was written in another language. She rose from bed, walked to the window, and pulled back the curtain. Outside the street was empty. The street lights cast long shadows across the pavement. The world painted in shades of blue and gold. It was peaceful, quiet, her life now. She returned to her phone. Read the texts again. Jenna didn't ask how she was, didn't apologize for the loan, for the screaming, for the years of expectations stacked on her shoulders like crates in the warehouse. There were no words of ownership, no remorse, just panic. And beneath that panic, entitlement. She opened the messaging app, thumb hovering above the keyboard. A few months ago, she would have answered, rushed to help, transferred money she didn't have, called Benice for advice, but not now. Not after all this. She thought of the sheets on her bed, the mug waiting in the sink, the key that opened a door no one else had ever walked through but her. Then she typed 2 sentences. Meline, 2:10 a.m. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I don't live there anymore. Her finger hovered over the send button for only a second before she tapped. Delivered. No anger, no accusation, just fact. She placed the phone face down and crawled back into bed. The fan hummed. The city breathed. Her chest rose and fell in a rhythm that belonged only to her. In the darkness, she smiled, not out of cruelty, but relief, because for the first time, she chose silence over sacrifice. And that silence, it felt like home. The call came 5 minutes after. The text was sent. Meline's phone lit up again, this time not with Jenna's name, but Ronald's. She let it ring twice. 3 times until silence returned. But it didn't last. A voicemail landed. She didn't want to listen, but something in her gut, maybe instinct, maybe closure, told her to press play. Ronald's voice came through, low and venomous. You think you're free? That walking away makes you better than us? Let me tell you something, Meline. If you don't come back and fix this, we'll tell your mother everything. That you abandoned us? That you left when things got hard? That you turned your back on family? There was a pause, then more venom. You know how she is. You know how she hates betrayal. Click. The message ended, but the rage in his voice lingered like smoke after a fire. Meline sat on the edge of her bed, phone resting on her lap. Her hands didn't shake. Her heart didn't race. She wasn't afraid. She was angry. Not the loud kind, the old kind. The kind that had brewed silently for years under every slammed door, every stolen dollar, every unspoken debt she was expected to carry. She opened the voicemail again, played it once more just to be sure she'd heard it right. You'll tell Mom, she whispered to herself. Go ahead. She scrolled through her contacts, found the name she hadn't dialed in over a year. Ella. Mom. Her finger hovered, then she hit call. To her surprise, her mother answered on the 3rd ring. Meline. Her voice was brittle. Not angry, just tired. Meline didn't wait. They're threatening to tell you I walked out, that I left them with nothing, that I broke the family. Elaine sighed. They're just panicking. I thought you should. No, Meline said before they rewrite the whole story. Silence. Then I already knew. Meline's breath caught. What? I've known for 3 years, Elaine said quietly. You told me. The day you opened that second account. You asked if I thought you were wrong. Meline's mind reeled. That conversation had been short during a rare moment when her mother had shown a flicker of softness. She barely remembered the words, only the ache in her voice. I told you then, Elaine continued, to do what you had to do, that I wouldn't stop you. But you never said anything. After. Meline said, you let them believe. I let them believe what they needed to survive, Elaine interrupted. And I let you go because you needed to survive too. Meline sat in silence, unsure what emotion to name. I'm sorry for not saying more, her mother added. But I couldn't carry all of it. Meline didn't know if that made her feel better or worse. I'm done, she finally said. With them, with the game, with being their backup plan. I know, her mother whispered. You don't owe them anything. They hung up without promises or platitudes. Meline opened her messaging app. She pulled up Jenna's thread. Blocked. Then Ronald's blocked. Then, finally, the old group chat that had once been named Whitmore Warriors. She left the group. Then one by one she deleted the conversations. Each swipe a final nail in the coffin of expectation. No more begging, no more guilt, no more threats disguised as loyalty. The dam break. For over 20 years, she said, I was their safety net. I paid bills I didn't know. I cleaned up messes I didn't make. I was the one who fixed the broken lights, stocked the fridge, stayed up late doing taxes I wasn't responsible for. Her voice wavered, but she pressed on. When I was 14, Jenna crashed your car and blamed me. You believed her. When I got my first job, Dad took half my paycheck to cover his missed payments. And when I got sick with the flu that one winter and asked for help, do you remember what you said? Silence. You said, take a hot shower and toughen up. But when Jenna twisted her ankle from dancing too long, you called an ambulance. Her mother said nothing. Meline wiped her cheek with the back of her hand. She hadn't realized she was crying. I kept hoping if I just gave more money, more help, more silence, you'd finally see me, not just as someone useful as your daughter. Her voice cracked. But I wasn't a daughter, was I? I was a tool, a machine. That kept the house running so no one else had to struggle. I didn't know it was that bad, Caroline said quietly. Meline's laugh was bitter. You didn't want to know. You let them shape the narrative. You let them decide who I was. Another pause. I'm sorry, her mother whispered. I should have seen it. Meline took a deep breath. I don't want an apology, Mom. I want you to understand why I'm not coming back. There was a long silence on the other end. Then Caroline said, I do. And for the first time, it felt like she meant it. For a long moment, there was only silence on the line. Meline could hear the faint hum of traffic behind her mother, maybe the soft wind of an open window. She waited, half afraid of what would come next. Then Caroline spoke, voice cracked at the edges. Maddie, I didn't know. I swear to you, I didn't know any of this. Meline swallowed. You didn't know? No, her mother said again, firmer now. I thought you were angry. They told me family is forever. But what if your forever feels like a cage? For 21 years, I gave them everything. My salary, my dreams, even my sanity. My father drank my future away. My sister mocked my struggle. And my mother, she left me with a promise I could never keep. They called me selfish the moment I chose myself. But here's the truth. Love doesn't mean slavery. This is the story of how I walked away from the people who shared my blood but never shared my pain, and how I finally learned to breathe on my own. Meline Whitmore was 39 years old and already tired of being alive. She lived in a crumbling apartment on the south edge of Milford, with her father Ronald and younger sister Jenna. The wallpaper peeled like tired skin. The ceiling in the kitchen leaked every spring, and the hallway light buzzed as if it too was sick of waiting for someone to change it. No one ever did, because Meline did everything and still nothing ever changed. At 18, she dropped out of college before completing her second semester. Not because she wanted to, but because the phone bill hadn't been paid, the landlord was threatening eviction, and Jenna, only 12 at the time, had no one else. Her mother had taken a temporary job in Toronto 18 years ago and never came back. No letter, no call, just the sound of the front door clicking shut. And a silence that filled every corner of Meline's life. Ronald, once a high school science teacher, drowned in a different kind of silence. Bottles clinked louder than his voice most days. He drank from dawn until nightfall, mumbling about the government bad luck and how life had cheated him. When he did speak to Meline, it was to ask for more whiskey or complain about the smell of cleaning products she used. Jenna had grown up in that chaos, yet somehow floated above it. She was 29 now, still living at home, working part-time as a nail technician and spending the rest of her time watching beauty tutorials or scrolling through Buried, broke open. The little girl who waited by the phone on holidays. The teenager who scanned every crowd for a familiar face that never appeared. The woman who thought she wasn't worth holding on to. It wasn't all in her head. It was stolen. "I missed you," she said between sobs. "So much for so long." "I'm here now," Caroline said. "And I'm not going anywhere." They stayed on the line for another hour, quiet, honest, broken, but rebuilding. Two women picking through the rubble of a lie that had stolen years they couldn't get back. And though the loss still burned, Meline felt something she hadn't in years. Chosen. This time, not for what she could give, but simply for who she was. 1 year passed. The seasons turned quietly. Snow melted into spring. Meline's studio stayed modest, cozy, still dressed in the pale blue sheets she'd picked out on her first day of freedom. The tiny potted basil on her windowsill had doubled in size, a silent testament to her steadiness. She had changed jobs twice, once promoted, once laterally moved. But she no longer defined herself by exhaustion. Her new role paid less, but gave her evenings back. She started attending a Thursday book club. She cooked slow meals. She stopped apologizing for resting. And then one afternoon while walking home from the market, she saw Ronald. He was across the street, hunched near the scaffolding of a construction site, loading bricks into a wheelbarrow. His flannel shirt was stained with concrete dust. His hair had thinned, and there was a limp in his step. She didn't remember. He didn't see her, but Meline stood there for a while watching. A year ago, he wouldn't carry a bag of groceries. A year ago, he said her worth was in her wallet. Now he moved slowly under the weight of his own choices. She didn't feel triumphant. She felt something closer to closure. The following week, Jenna's name popped up unexpectedly in a local debt settlement forum. Someone had posted a question about consolidating loan payments, and her profile showed up in the replies. 27 months left, the comment read, slowly getting through it. Meline clicked away, without reading further. Life, it seemed, had become the teacher she never could be. Back then, they had mocked her savings account. Now, Jenna was learning about interest rates the hard way. Meline didn't reach out. She didn't have to. The universe was doing what she could not, handing out consequences. Her therapist once said, "You don't always get to see justice, but sometimes you get distance, and that's enough." She finally understood what that meant. It wasn't revenge. It was relief. 6 months after cutting the last thread, something unexpected happened. Meline was promoted. Her boss called her into the office on a quiet Tuesday morning. No fanfare, no speech, just a signed letter and a genuine smile. "We're expanding the Denver region," he said. "You've kept this place running during chaos. We want you leading the new logistics division." Madeline blinked. She hadn't asked, hadn't pushed. She'd just done the work quietly, steadily, without sacrificing herself like she used to. Now the reward felt different. Not like validation from a broken family, but like a milestone she built herself. The raise wasn't huge, but it came with autonomy. More than that, it came with dignity. A job where no one leaned on her until she collapsed, where she could clock out at 5 and still feel whole. She took the role, celebrated with a slice of carrot cake and a walk around the lake. No one clapped. No one posted about it. And yet it felt like the loudest cheer of her life. 2 weeks into the new position, she opened her inbox late one evening and froze. A message had slipped through her filter marked simply from Mom. The name alone made her throat tighten. She hovered for a moment, debating, then clicked. The email wasn't long. Melline, I know I have no right to ask for anything. I've had time to think. More than anything, I regret not listening. I regret using your kindness like it had no end. I don't expect forgiveness. But I need you to know. I see it now. I see you. I'm sorry, Mom. For a full minute, she didn't move. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. Then she clicked reply. Her fingers paused above the keyboard. What did you say to someone who taught you that love was conditional? Then turned around and whispered, sorry. She typed slowly, I appreciate your words. I forgive you, but I won't forget. I'm building something new now and it doesn't include going back. Please take care of yourself, Melline. She hit send. There was no dramatic release, no swelling background music, just stillness. The next morning, she sat on her balcony, a mug of coffee warming her hands. The city hummed beneath her, buses exhaling, dogs barking in the distance, someone laughing across the courtyard. She looked out at the skyline. The plants on her railing caught the light, and for the first time she felt it, not survival, but arrival. She was no longer the daughter trying to be enough. She was simply herself, whole, awake. Influencer feeds on her cracked iPhone. She contributed nothing to the household, unless you counted laundry left half wet in the machine or empty cereal boxes tucked back into the cupboard. And Melline, she was the one who bought that cereal. The one who kept the lights on, paid rent, called the plumber when the bathroom flooded. She worked 2 jobs, day shifts at a local bakery and night shifts cleaning offices. Her body ached, her feet were swollen more often than not, and sleep came only in fractured hours. Yet no one thanked her. Not once. Instead, Ronald would grunt if she bought the wrong kind of bread. Jenna would roll her eyes if Melline asked her to help fold laundry. Every so often, one of Jenna's boyfriends would crash for a week or 2, leaving behind cigarette burns on the sofa and unpaid pizza bills. Melline never said anything. She cooked. She cleaned. She kept everyone fed, warm, and alive. She was a caretaker by default, by necessity, by curse. Sometimes in the stillness between exhaustion and sleep, she imagined a different life. One where she lived alone, maybe in a small studio apartment with a window that overlooked something green. A life where her paycheck wasn't swallowed by other people's needs, where she could sit down with a book and no one would ask what's for dinner. But the guilt always pulled her back. Ronald would starve. Jenna would spiral. And wasn't family supposed to take care of each other? The worst part was that they made her feel guilty for even imagining it. You're lucky you don't have real problems, Jenna had said once, tossing her long brown hair. Like it weighed more than her responsibilities. At least you don't have anxiety, Ronald had shouted once, when Melline forgot to buy his cigarettes. You think working some stupid bakery job makes you better than me? I gave you life. No one remembered the time she walked 5 miles through a snowstorm to get Jenna antibiotics, or the time she sold her grandmother's necklace to cover Ronald's hospital copay. No one noticed the way her hands had started to tremble, or how her back never quite stopped hurting. But Melline remembered every sacrifice stacked up inside her like bricks. Not building a home, no, they were building a wall, one that was getting harder and harder to climb over. It happened on a Tuesday. Meline's evening shift ran 30 minutes over because the office building's security system had glitched, locking her in the janitor's closet with a bucket and a mop. By the time she got to the liquor store, the Claire had already flipped the close sign. She pressed her forehead to the glass, willing time to reverse, then walked the 4 blocks home in silence. Her limbs ached, her hair smelled like ammonia. She opened the apartment door and didn't even have time to take off her shoes before Ronald shouted from the living room, "Where the hell is my beer?" Jenna peeked from the hallway, arms crossed, chewing gum like she was at a matinee. "You're late." "I got held up at work," Meline said, closing the door quietly. The liquor store was already closed. Ronald's voice rose. "You had one thing to do, and you couldn't even manage that." "One thing," she repeated, her throat tightening. "Just one?" "Don't start," Jenna muttered, disappearing into her bedroom with her phone lighting up her face. "You always make everything about you." Meline stood there for a full 30 seconds, her feet in wet sneakers, her back screaming, her head full of noise that wasn't hers, and something inside her cracked. Not loudly, not like glass shattering, more like a seam slowly splitting in an overused coat. Quiet, irreversible. She didn't reply. She went to the kitchen, reheated the leftover soup she'd made 2 days ago, and sat at the small, wobbly table in silence. Neither of them joined her. Jenna slammed her door. Ronald turned up the TV. The spoon trembled in her hand, hitting the side of the bowl with a soft, repetitive clink. For the first time, Meline wondered what would happen if she simply didn't come home one day, just vanished, left no note, took her name off the lease, and disappeared. What would they do? Would they panic? Would they care? Would they even notice? The next morning, she overslept by 10 minutes and left the apartment without packing Ronald's lunch. A petty rebellion, but a rebellion nonetheless. As she locked the door behind her, Mrs. Ellsworth, the elderly neighbor from 2C, passed by with her poodle in one arm and a bag of groceries in the other. "Oh, I didn't know you worked for the Whites," she said brightly. "I always assumed you were just the help." Meline blinked. "I'm their daughter." "Oh," Mrs. Ellsworth flushed. "Oh my, I see you coming. And going with cleaning supplies and groceries all the time. I thought, well, with your father always out on the porch and your sister, well, lounging." Meline nodded slowly, forcing a smile. "It's fine. Easy mistake." But it wasn't fine. It hit her like a brick to the chest. The world saw her the way her family did, invisible, voiceless, useful only in function. Even strangers thought she was an employee in her own home. Her existence was so erased, so consumed by caretaking that she had become unrecognizable even to herself. By the time she reached the bakery, her throat burned with unshed words. She dropped her bag behind the counter, tied on her apron, and stood at the register, numb. Muffins came out of the oven. Coffee brewed. Customers chatted about their weekend plans. The world spun, while her world collapsed one invisible piece at a time. That evening, Jenna asked why the bathroom still smelled like mildew. Ronald demanded to know why she didn't buy his brand of pretzels. Meline said nothing, but inside something shifted. Again. The next day, she called in sick to both jobs. For the first time in years, she spent the afternoon at the public library, sitting in silence between the tall rows of books, watching sunlight filter through dusty windows. It felt like hiding, like breathing, like remembering she existed beyond obligation. By 3:45 a.m., Meline was already lacing up her work boots in the dark. She moved quietly, careful not to wake the others. Ronald's snores thundered from the living room couch, and Jenna's door was closed, muffling the faint beat of whatever music she'd fallen asleep to. She tiptoed into the hallway, grabbed her jacket, and slipped out the door into the freezing dawn. Denver at that hour was ghostly. Streetlights casting long shadows, storefronts shuttered tight. The city still slept while she began another 12-hour shift in the warehouse freezer. She clocked in exactly at 4 a.m. walking past the rows of chilled storage units. Her breath came out in clouds, and the layers under her uniform did little to keep the cold from sinking into her bones. Still, there was something oddly comforting about the predictability of it all: stacking, labeling, checking, inventory. Everything had its place. Everything made sense. Her supervisor, Carla, approached around mid-morning, clipboard in hand and a rare smile on her face. "You've been here 2 years now, right?" she asked. "Almost 3," Meline replied, bracing for more overtime. Carla nodded. "We're opening up a lead position in inventory control. It's not glamorous, but it comes with a raise. I think you'd be a good fit. You're reliable, fast, and frankly, you do half the work of 3 people already." Meline blinked. "Me?" Carla smiled wider. "You've earned it?" For a moment, Meline forgot about the ache in her back and the frostbite nipping at her fingers. Her chest swelled, not with pride exactly, but with something rarer: recognition. Someone had noticed. Someone thought she was enough. She thanked Carla, then spent the rest of her shift in a daze, half floating above her own steps. She imagined telling Ronald and Jenna, imagined them maybe even clapping or offering to make dinner for once. She stopped at a bakery on the way home, spent the last $12 in her wallet on a lemon tart Jenna loved and a 6-pack of Ronald's favorite beer. It wasn't much, but it felt symbolic, like bringing an olive branch along with her good news. The apartment smelled like microwave burritos and unwashed socks. Jenna was on the couch, painting her nails bright purple while scrolling her phone. Ronald sat shirtless at the table, puffing a cigarette and frowning at a scratch-off ticket. "I brought dessert," Meline said, setting the bag down. "Also, Jenna glanced up. "You win the lottery or something." "I might be getting promoted," Meline said. "Carla's recommending me for inventory lead." It's a small step, but she trailed off, waiting. Ronald grunted, without looking up. "Does it come with a vacation?" Meline blinked. "No, but it's a raise and more hours during the day," so Jenna snorted. "Wow, a raise. Guess that means we'll get name brand cereal now." Meline's hand tightened around the paper bag. "I just thought you thought we'd throw you a party." Jenna rolled her eyes. "Look, good for you, but don't expect anyone to start bowing down." Ronald stubbed out his cigarette. "You work a freezer job, Maddie. Don't act like you're CEO of anything." The words landed like ice water down her spine. All the warmth from earlier drained in an instant. "I didn't say I was," she murmured. "I just wanted to share." Jenna shrugged. "Cool, but honestly, you getting promoted doesn't help anyone but you." Meline stared at them. The tart still sat on the counter unopened. She had thought naively maybe that even a flicker of good news would light something in them. Not pride, not praise, just acknowledgement, but instead their apathy wrapped around her like fog, dampening whatever fire she dared to carry home. She went to her room without touching dinner, the sound of canned laughter from the TV following her down the hall like an insult. 2 weeks later, the bank called. Meline missed the call during her shift, but the voicemail chilled her blood. "Ms. Whitmore, this is Cassandra from Continental Credit. We're following up on your recent loan activity. Your next payment of $31,250 is due this Friday. If you have any questions about your disbursement schedule, please call us back." She sat frozen in the locker room, phone gripped in her hand, the steam of her post-shift tea forgotten. Alone. She hadn't taken out any loan. Heart racing, she pulled up her online banking app. Sure enough, a loan she didn't recognize, labeled Personal Credit Advance, was listed under her name. $5,000 issued 3 weeks ago. 2 payments had already gone out of her account. Her head throbbed. She scrolled through the disbursement details. The deposit had gone into a shared account, one she hadn't used in years. It still had her name on it, but the only person who ever touched it anymore was Jenna. Meline grabbed her coat and left work early, heart pounding in her ears. When she got home, Jenna was sprawled across the couch in leggings and an oversized hoodie, binging a dating show and eating takeout. Meline stood in the doorway, jaw clenched. Jenna. Jenna looked up lazily. What? You used my name to take out a loan. Jenna blinked, chewing. Oh, that. Meline's voice cracked. You stole my identity, Jenna. That's fraud. Jenna scoffed. Relax. I was going to pay it back. With what? Your good intentions? Jenna rolled her eyes. It's just $5,000. You act like I bought a car or something. You bought clothes, food, subscriptions. I can see the transactions. Jenna stood now defensive. You've got money. You're getting a raise. What's the big deal? Meline stared, stunned. The big deal is you didn't even ask. You used my name like it meant nothing. Like I'm just an account to tap. At that moment, Ronald walked in with a six-pack and dropped his keys on the table. What's all this yelling about? Meline turned to him. Jenna took out a loan in my name, my credit, my bank account. Ronald didn't even blink. So, you live here. What's yours is ours. She laughed dry and bitter. No, it's not. Ronald cracked open a beer and sat down. You always make things bigger than they are. We're family. This is what families do. Meline's hands shook. Families ask. Families apologize. Families don't steal and act entitled. Jenna crossed her arms. Wow. One little loan and you're acting like you're being crucified. Maybe don't hoard all the money if you don't want people to borrow some. Hoard? Meline nearly choked. I work 60 hours a week to keep this place from collapsing. I pay rent, groceries, utilities. I wash your clothes and buy your shampoo. And now you call that hoarding? No one spoke. She turned, storming into her room, slamming the door behind her. In the quiet that followed, her breath came fast, eyes blurry with disbelief. She opened her laptop and pulled up every account tied to her name. As she clicked through login and statements, she felt a weight settle in her chest. How long had this been happening? What else had they done? Under her name? She looked at her own face in the dark screen's reflection, tired, older than she remembered, drawn thin from years of carrying people who never once carried her. Meline had always worn the mask of sacrifice. But now it felt less like a choice and more like a muzzle. The raise finally came through. It wasn't life-changing, just enough to bump Meline's paycheck by a few hundred a month, but it felt like something solid, something earned. The first thing she did was open a new savings account in a bank across town, one Ronald and Jenna had never heard of. She deposited $150 from her first raise check and told no one. For the first time in years, she felt like she had a secret that belonged solely to her. Something no one could touch, twist, or demand. A small act of rebellion, a quiet stake in her own future. She kept the receipts folded neatly in her wallet. Behind an expired bus pass and a photo booth strip of her and a college friend she hadn't spoken to in over a decade. Then one night it unraveled. She had gotten home late and changed clothes in a rush. Her work pants landed on the bed, wallet half hanging out of the back pocket. She went to the kitchen to heat up leftovers, not realizing Jenna was home early, not realizing the trap had already been set. She heard the commotion before she saw it. Jenna's voice cut through the apartment like a blade. What the hell is this? Meline rounded the corner to find Jenna standing in the hallway, waving the crumpled bank receipt in the air. Like evidence at a trial. You're hiding money now? Jenna shouted. Seriously? Meline froze. Put that down. Ronald poked his head out of the bathroom, toothbrush still in his mouth. What's going on? She's been stashing money behind our backs, Jenna snapped. Has a whole other account? Who knows what else? She's hiding. Meline walked over, hand outstretched. That's none of your business. Ronald emerged fully now. Towel slung over one shoulder. Wait, you got another account? What? Are you planning to leave or something? Meline didn't answer right away. The silence was her answer. Jenna's eyes narrowed. Unbelievable. After everything we've Done for you, Meline scoffed. Done for me? Like what exactly? Jenna didn't flinch. We let you stay here when your first apartment flooded. We shared our space. You mean the couch? Meline shot back. I paid rent the second I moved in. I paid the security deposit. I fixed the leaky sink and paid off Ronald's overdue phone bill. You didn't let me stay. You charged me to survive. Jenna crossed her arms. If you don't trust us, then just say it. I don't. Meline said calmly. The words were a grenade in the room. Everything went still. Ronald stepped forward. You've been squirreling away money while we're struggling. You mean while I'm struggling to keep this house running? Meline corrected. Yes, I set aside $150 so I can maybe afford a life that isn't tethered to everyone else's chaos. Ronald's eyes narrowed. You sound ungrateful. I'm exhausted, she replied. That's not the same thing. Jenna looked like she'd been slapped. So what now? You want to move out? Leave us hanging. No, Meline said. I want boundaries, and apparently I have to hide to get them. Jenna shook her head. This is messed up. Meline reached for the receipt. What's messed up is needing to defend saving my own money. Ronald's voice lowered. Threatening. You're acting like a stranger. Meline met his eyes. Then, maybe that's what I've become. The receipt crinkled as she slid it from Jenna's hand. She walked away without another word, the air behind her buzzing with unspoken accusations. She didn't slam the door this time either, just closed it with the same quiet finality she was growing good at. The next morning the kitchen was unusually quiet. Meline entered with caution, expecting cold shoulders or awkward silence. Instead, Ronald and Jenna sat at the table like they'd been waiting for her. Ronald sipped from his chipped coffee mug and set it down with a deliberate clink. We talked last night, he said. Flatly. We came to an agreement. Meline raised an eyebrow. Agreement? About the money, he replied. Since you're clearly making more now and keeping secrets, we figured it's only fair. Jenna leaned back, arms crossed. Face unreadable. Ronald continued, 8% goes to your sister. 20 to me. Simple. Meline blinked. Excuse me? Ronald shrugged like it was common sense. She's got expenses, car maintenance, subscriptions, health stuff, and I'm between jobs again. You wouldn't want your family to suffer, would you? Meline stared, stunned. You're telling me how to split my paycheck. Don't act like you earned it all alone. Jenna cut in. You live under this roof. You didn't build it yourself. Meline laughed, short, sharp, bitter. Are you serious right now? Ronald tilted his head. You're lucky we're not asking for more. Meline turned to Jenna. And you're okay with this? Jenna's eyes gleamed smug now. Actually, I've known about your secret account for weeks. Meline's breath caught. Jenna smiled thinly. Found the receipt in your bag a while ago. I just waited. Wanted to see how long you'd pretend like nothing changed. Figured if you wanted to hide it so badly, it must be worth something. You set me up, Meline whispered. I gave you a chance to come clean, Jenna said unfazed. You chose to play martyr. Meline felt something shift inside her. Not panic, not rage, something else, something unexpected, laughter. At first, it came out in a quiet burst. Then it grew. Deep, full-bodied laughter, raw, uncontrollable. She doubled over, tears forming at the corners of her eyes, not from sadness, but from the absurdity of it all. Jenna scowled. What's so funny? Meline wiped her eyes. You, both of you, this entire charade. Ronald frowned. What the hell's wrong with you? She straightened, eyes gleaming now. What's wrong with me? For the first time, absolutely nothing. They stared at her. Like she'd cracked. Maybe she had. You think I've been scared all this time? She said, voice steady now. Afraid of being thrown out. Afraid of disappointing you. But here's the truth. I was scared. Scared of being alone. Scared of being unloved. But you've made it easy. Ronald stood, voice rising. Don't forget who gave you a place to stay. Meline stepped closer. You mean the room I paid for, the bills I cover? The dinners I cook? You didn't give me anything. You took and now you want a cut of my life? Jenna narrowed her eyes. So what now? You walk away again? Meline smiled. No, not yet. First, I'm going to enjoy the look on your faces when you realize I'm not afraid of you anymore. Ronald opened his mouth, but Meline raised her hand. Save it. Your math's off anyway. You're not getting 80%. You're not getting 20%. You're getting nothing. She turned, grabbed her bag from the counter, and headed for the door. You'll regret this, Jenna called after her. Meline paused, hand on the doorknob. Maybe, but at least it'll be my choice. She walked out into the morning light, the air crisp and clean. For the first time in years, the weight on her chest lifted, not because her burdens were gone, but because she'd finally decided they weren't hers to carry anymore. The apartment felt smaller than usual. Meline moved through the narrow hallway, folding what little she owned into a single suitcase. She packed without hurry, methodical, deliberate. 2 sweaters, 3 pairs of jeans, her worn copy of the bell jar, and the leather-bound notebook she hadn't written in for years. She left behind the old desk Ronald had borrowed and never returned, the chipped coffee mug Jenna once bought on a clearance rack and claimed as sentimental. Outside rain tapped against the windows like fingernails. The forecast had warned of a storm, but the clouds felt personal. She zipped her suitcase and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the cracked paint on the far wall. For 21 years, she had bent herself to fit into the Whitmore household. Cleaner, provider, fixer. Now, for the first time, she was done shrinking. She stood, grabbed her keys, and pulled the suitcase behind her. But when she stepped into the living room, Ronald was already there, planted firmly in front of the door like a blockade. You're not going anywhere, he said. Meline exhaled. Move, Ronald. He shook his head. You can't just walk out. You think life's going to be easier out there? You think you're better than this family? I think I deserve to try, she replied. Behind him, Jenna appeared, red-faced and teary-eyed. Her voice broke on the first word. You're really doing this? Meline didn't answer. You're leaving us? Jenna cried. After everything we've been through, Meline's voice was quiet. After everything I've done for you, you're a coward, Jenna hissed, running away. Instead of fixing what you broke. Meline looked at her sister, searching for even a glimmer of understanding. You broke it, she said softly. You just never had to carry the pieces. Ronald took a step closer. You think you're some kind of hero now? No, Meline said. Just someone who finally knows when to stop bleeding for people who don't even bring a bandage. He didn't move. She stared him down. Move or I'll call the police. The threat hung in the air, heavier than the thunder that rumbled outside. Ronald studied her face, saw the steel in her eyes, and stepped aside. Jenna sobbed. Harder. You're not just walking away from us. You're abandoning your family. Meline's fingers tightened around the suitcase handle. Then maybe family means something different to you than it does to me. She opened the door. Cold wind rushed in, carrying with it the scent of rain and freedom. The hallway beyond was dimly lit, but it felt wider than any room in that apartment. You'll regret this, Jenna whispered behind her. Meline turned. I've spent 2 decades regretting staying. I'll take my chances with leaving. She stepped out. The door didn't slam behind her. It remained slightly ajar, creaking on its hinges. A fitting metaphor, she thought. Some doors never truly close. But sometimes you have to walk through them anyway. As she descended the stairs into the rain-soaked night, her suitcase bumped against each step with rhythmic certainty. She didn't have a destination, just the name of a friend who'd offered her a couch and the hope of quiet. Every drop of rain that hit her shoulders felt like punctuation. Periods marking the end of sentences never spoken. The end of roles never appreciated. By the time she reached the bus stop, her jacket was soaked through, but her breathing was steady. She wasn't running anymore. She was leaving. The studio was nothing special. A single room with Creaky floors, a too small kitchenette, and a draft that slipped through the window frame at night. But to Meline, it was a palace. She moved in with only 2 suitcases and a folding chair. The air smelled faintly of lemon cleaner and old pinewood. Her first purchase wasn't furniture. It was a set of pale blue bed sheets, soft cotton, on sale. She spent nearly 15 minutes choosing the color. For once, no one was standing behind her at the checkout, asking why she needed fancy sheets or suggesting the cheaper brand. She chose blue because it reminded her of silence, the good kind. The first morning in the new place, she brewed coffee in a second-hand French press and poured it into a mismatched mug she'd picked up at a thrift store. No one interrupted her. No one asked if she was making breakfast for 3. No one rolled their eyes because she liked her coffee black. She sat by the single window, sipping slowly, legs curled beneath her, watching the sunrise turn the city orange. Her phone was off. Her shoulders, for once, didn't ache from bracing for impact. She didn't know what the future held, but this tiny moment felt like proof that life could be lived on her own terms. Later that week, she met her landlady, Ms. Benice Adler, a woman in her late 70s. Benice walked with a cane and wore thick glasses that magnified her eyes. She had a voice like gravel and hair like steel wool. But when she smiled, the years seemed to melt away. "I used to live in that unit," Benice said, handing over a spare key. "Back when I was your age, before I bought the building. You got a good spot." Faces east. Mornings are quiet. Meline nodded, a little surprised by how warm Benice felt. "Thank you. I really needed a place like this." Benice studied her for a moment. "Trouble back home?" Meline hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, you could say that." Benice didn't ask for details. She simply pulled out a chair and sat with a groan. "Family." Meline's laugh was more of a sigh. "That's the word they used." "Yeah," Benice snorted. "Mine too. I left Alabama in '74. Took a Greyhound to Denver with $28. And a backpack full of books. Told my folks I'd write. Never did." Meline blinked. "You never went back?" "Nope," Benice said, sipping from her chipped thermos. "And I've had Thanksgiving alone for 42 years. Best decision I ever made." Meline couldn't help but smile. Did it ever feel wrong leaving them? Wrong? Benice leaned in. "Honey, let me tell you something. Blood doesn't entitle anyone to your peace. If they can't love you right, they don't get to love you at all." The words hit harder than Meline expected. Benice went on. "People think family is about obligation, but you know what it really is? Choice. Anyone who makes you feel like loving them is a job. They're not family. They're employers without paychecks." Meline sat in silence, feeling her world tilt just slightly like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Benice stood. "You'll figure it out. Just remember, your worth isn't measured by how much pain you can carry." As the door closed behind her, Meline stared at the pale blue sheets folded neatly on her bed. She thought about her old apartment, about the slammed doors and the shouted accusations. And then she thought about Benice, alone but free, brewing coffee. For herself, not for anyone's expectations. Maybe family wasn't who raised you. Maybe family was who reminded you had the right to raise yourself. The knock came at 2 o'clock in the morning. "With me. I thought you didn't want me around." Meline's heart thudded. "Why? Would I ever think that?" Caroline took a breath, then continued. "After I moved to Montreal, I sent letters, emails, too. I kept reaching out. Ronald told me, Ben. He said you didn't want contact, that you needed distance, that I shouldn't interfere." The air left Meline's lungs. "What?" she whispered. "I even tried to come visit," Caroline said. "Twice. Once for your 30th birthday. Ronald said you were traveling. The second time he told me you refused, that you didn't want old wounds reopened." Meline gripped the countertop. "He said that about me? He said you wanted space?" Her mother continued. "That you were angry I moved away. That you asked me not to come back." Meline's legs gave out. She slid to the floor, back against the kitchen cabinet, phone still pressed to her ear. I never said that, she choked. I would. Never. I waited years for you to reach out. I thought you were the one who walked away. Caroline's voice cracked. No, sweetheart. I thought you did. They sat in mutual shock, tethered by a phone line and a decade of stolen words. Meline's mind raced, trying to connect. Timelines. Emails she never saw. Birthdays spent wondering why her mother never called. Postcards she never received. How could he do that? She finally managed. I trusted him, Caroline said softly. I thought maybe I'd failed you somehow, that he was protecting your wishes. He always sounded so calm, so sure. Meline closed her eyes. The betrayal felt deeper than anything Ronald had ever done to her finances or her time. He had taken her voice, taken her mother's love, and rewrote it into abandonment. He hadn't just used her. He'd erased her. I'm so sorry, Meline, her mother whispered. I should have pushed harder. I should have tried more. No, Meline said, tears now streaming freely. He made sure we both stayed in the dark. He stole us from each other. A part of her, long